Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. Today's battle was very confusing towards the end, which, well, for reasons that will become apparent as we get to the end. To begin with, however, this is Yves the Chief 28 in the British Tier 10 battleship HMS Thunderer. It's a Tier 10 domination battle here on the Crash Zone Alpha map. And honestly, the matchmaking's not bad. No aircraft carriers. There are 2 submarines, which could be problematic. Only 2 destroyers. Both teams have 5 battleships, of which Yves is 1. And both teams also have 3 extremely nervous cruisers. And with that amount of battleships in play, they better be very, very cautious cruisers, or they're going to become early casualties. Bit of context about the Thunderer. Not too long after the British battleship line was introduced into the game, culminating in the absurdly good Tier 10 HMS Conqueror, a ship that at the time was armed, well it still is, armed with 12 16-inch guns and high explosive shells, the like of which had never been seen in the game up until that point, with not just stupid amounts of damage, but also the highest fire chance of any high explosive shell in the game up until that point. 48%. And the armor-piercing shells weren't that bad either. On top of this, it also had the single most ridiculous repair party consumable that had ever been seen in the game up until that point too, able to recover, quite frankly, ridiculous amounts of high explosive fire and flooding damage, up to 75% of the ship's entire hit point pool under ideal circumstances. The joke went around that when the Conqueror started taking damage, it could basically print a new ship. Oh, and on top of that, it was also the stealthiest Tier 10 battleship in the game. Well, that's all very interesting, Jingles, but what does any of this have to do with the Thunderer that Yves is sailing? Patience, young Padawan, all will be revealed. Former World of Warships community contributor Little White Mouse joked, and I must stress that this was a joke, she was not being serious. What if you were to take the Conqueror, give it 18-inch rather than 16-inch guns, and give it an even more ridiculous chance of setting fire on target with the high explosive shells? Wargaming said, hold my beer, and HMS Thunderer was introduced into the game. The Conqueror's already ridiculous 48% chance of setting a fire with a main battery high explosive shell is increased on this thing to 63%. On top of that, the 18-inch high explosive shells hit harder than the already stupidly powerful 16-inch high explosive shells on the Conqueror. The guns are extremely accurate. I mean, she effectively gets battle cruiser dispersion. The armor-piercing shells, because they're 18-inch in caliber, can overmatch up to 30mm of armor plating. And on top of all that, they only have a 26-second reload. Oh, and like the Conqueror, she also has better stealth than many Tier 10 cruisers. Like the Conqueror, she also doesn't have fantastic armour and a rather exposed citadel, as Yves takes a bit of a pounding from the Brennus over there. That was a cruiser shooting at him. Wargaming were, of course, perfectly aware that the Thunderer is a little bit of a meme. Oh, Yves, he's going to keep doing that to you as long as you keep showing him a broadside to shoot at. Then again, he is doing exactly the same thing to you, and, well, your guns are a lot bigger than his are. And it looks like friendly U-45L1 took him out, although you did lose an awful lot of health there, unnecessarily. But getting back to the ship itself, the Thunderer, Wargaming were perfectly aware that they basically introduced a meme ship into the game. It was introduced for coal in the armoury in late 2019, and a little more than a year later, in early 2021, Wargaming said, right, no, you can't get this ship anymore. And they just removed it from the armoury. And in fact, to this day, if you go to HMS Thunderer's World of Warships wiki page entry and you scroll down and look at the list of pros and cons, have a look at the list of, the list of pros is fairly impressive, because there is a lot about this ship that is amazing. And then you have a look at the list of cons, you know, the downsides, and it's an equally long list, but then you actually read through them, and some of them are, you know, valid. Fairly poor shell velocity, yeah, okay. Weak armour scheme, especially against high explosive spam, yeah, that's certainly true. But then you look at some of the rest of the things that are actually officially listed as downsides on this ship, and you realise that most of them are just pure filler. Like, for example, while better than standard repair party, not as effective as Conquerors. So, having a repair party that's only better than 90% of the ships in this game is listed as an official downside to HMS Thunderer. There's a whole bunch of cons listed here that seem specifically listed in order to try to convince people that for some reason the Thunderer isn't actually better than the Conqueror. For example, she only gets 8 guns instead of the Conqueror's 12. Well, yeah, but she gets 8 18-inch guns compared to the Conqueror's 12 16-inch guns. And the Thunderer's guns reload 4 seconds faster. And they're more accurate. And they hit harder. They state that the Thunderer's guns only have, I can't even say this with a straight face, they only have a 21.5 kilometre range compared to the Conqueror's 23.4. Oh, what a shame. But they saved the best till last. And I'm not making this one up. You can go to this ship's wiki page and check it out for yourself, at least assuming it doesn't get edited out in the meantime. But the final official con in the list of pros and cons on this ship's World of Warships wiki page is, and I quote, "Playing her can occasionally result in your getting reported by several members of the enemy team due to sheer frustration." This ship's wiki page officially warns you that the Thunderer is so overpowered, don't be surprised if you get reported just for playing it. The thing you have to bear in mind today, though, is that this ship was made unavailable 4 years ago. So whether or not it's still considered overpowered today, well, that's a different matter entirely. But it is definitely not a bad ship. Yves here coming to the aid of the friend Libertad, because this flank has completely collapsed. The team have suffered 4 casualties, and that Libertad is extremely likely to be the 5th. But if they can take the Grosser Kurfürst down with him, actually it's possible, although unlikely, but possible that if they can kill the Grosser Kurfürst, the Libertad may be able to escape. It's unlikely, but, well, it's worth a try. And they are all focused on that Grosser Kurfürst down. And yep, he's gone. Yves got him. That's his first kill. That's his team's second kill. But it doesn't look like the Libertad is going to get out of there. No, he had a double fire. There was no sense in not shooting and trying to go undetected. He was going to burn to death anyway. So, oh well, never mind. But they at least managed to take the Grosser Kurfürst down with him. And the Grosser Kurfürst was also contesting control of the cap circle at Bravo. So sinking the Grosser Kurfürst has also ensured that the team retained control of 3 of the 4 cap circles. Although there is an enemy Libertad over there, if you have a look at the minimap. Whether or not he wants to actually stick his nose into that cap circle and leave the safety of the island that he was sheltering behind. Oh, he is feeling brave. Yep, he's contesting Bravo. He's not alone. Well, he's the only one in the cap circle, but he's not the only enemy ship over there. But yeah, he's sticking his nose out, and he's going to get it shot off if he's not very, very careful. Look at the reload on these things. Base reload of 26 seconds. Yves got it down to 21. The Scharnhorst has a 20-second reload, but the Scharnhorst doesn't have no 18-inch guns. The Scharnhorst has 11-inch guns. The guns on this thing are just ridiculous. Actually, speaking of ships with good guns, there's basically 3 of them defending Bravo down here. There's Yves himself in the Thunderer. There's the Bungo, the Japanese Tier 10 battlecruiser, which also has some seriously nice guns and has in fact just sunk the Libertad. Although the team have just lost to Puerto Rico in exchange. There's the Bungo over there. And let's not forget the 3rd ship defending the corner down here, the French Tier 10 battlecruiser, the Marseille. Although interestingly, the Marseille, while definitely a battlecruiser, like the Bungo, is in the French cruiser line, and the Bungo is in the Japanese battleship line. I'm not really sure where they draw the line as far as these things are concerned, but they're both ships with extremely good guns, as of course is the Thunderer. The issue though, actually there's a couple of issues. One, well, the team have just lost to Montana, which is bad. They're now down 7 ships. 2, there's also an enemy submarine over there, and he's just landed a whole bunch of crucial torpedoes on the Bungo, who was attempting to recover some health, but, well, he's facing a Libertad, so he's probably dead. And also, they appear to be splitting their fire. Somebody's landing hits on the Goliath right at the rear. which is allowing the Libertad to stay in the game long enough to finish off the Bungo. And now there's only 4 of them left against 8 enemies. But there's that 63% chance of setting a fire on target with these 18-inch high explosive shells. Which means now there are only 4 of them left. Any second now, against 7 enemies. So that's 3 enemy battleships now. 1 Grosser Kurfürst and a pair of Libertads who have all gotten comprehensively bitch-slapped, rushing down here, trying to contest the cap circle at Bravo. I don't think the enemy Goliath to the rear is going to be in any kind of rush to come down here and try his luck too. Although there is of course still an enemy submarine there. And while he didn't technically, he wasn't the one to kill the Bungo, the torpedoes that he hit the Bungo with were definitely the reason the Bungo died very shortly after to fires set by the enemy Libertad. Somebody has Yves spotted. There's a ping there from the submarine. Is that the submarine at periscope depth keeping him spotted? Because that's kind of dangerous. Because there's a Cerberus over there, and obviously the Goliath hiding behind the island as well. Now there's a double fire, which is kind of bad. I mean, the Thunderer doesn't have the stupidly overpowered heel that the Conqueror does. You know, it can't basically reprint an entirely new ship. But it does get specialised repair party. It's only better than 90% of the repair parties on other ships in this game. But it's on cooldown, and that's a double fire. He is no longer spotted. And that sonar ping did miss, which means those torpedoes are going to miss. But if that... he could be in serious trouble here. If the submarine... the submarine pops up to try to reacquire him. That's really bad news for Yves. But it's probably also going to be really, really bad news for the submarine because the Marseille's moving in. And I don't think the submarine realises how close the Marseille... He is, he's done it. Yes, there it is. Alright, okay, this could go either way. So the Marseille unloads on him. Yves unloads on him. But Yves is, of course, spotted. And he's got 3 seconds before he can get a heel off. The Cerberus is shooting at him. The Goliath is shooting at him. There goes the heel. He's hit again. He's down to 3,000 hit points with a fire. There goes the damage control. He's got the submarine. Shots out against the Goliath. Can he out-heal the incoming damage? Oh, it's going to be tight. All of those hits that he's taken, even if they don't sink him, they're eating away at the safety margin. Oh, that could have been really bad. That was 18-inch armour piercing from the enemy Thunderer. Oh, and he's gone undetected. Oh, incoming shots from the enemy Cerberus. If any of those had set a fire, he'd be dead now, because his damage control is now on a 1-minute cooldown. Oh, and the friendly Forrest Sherman just went down up to the north in Cap Circle Delta, but he did manage to take the enemy Christopher Columbus down with him. And we have obviously been focusing on what's been happening down here with Yves, but we have to give a shout out to that Forrest Sherman because he has essentially been almost completely single-handedly defending that cap circle up to the northeast at Delta for most of this game. He's basically spent the entire game up there fighting off enemy ship after enemy ship, and is the reason that cap circle is still being held by Yves' team. Although obviously there's nobody up there to prevent the surviving enemy destroyer from slipping in there. And in fact, there it goes. So, here's the situation. They're still outnumbered 2-1. It's 2 against 4. They now only have the 1 cap circle down here at Bravo. God knows they've paid for it. And they should be able to hold on to it because the Goliath is unlikely to want to take its chances against the Thunderer and the Marseille in order to take it off them. But the enemy team will very shortly have 3 of the 4 cap circles. And that's not good. The only good thing that you can really say about this situation, and yes, I realise that Yves is given uncomfortable amounts of broadside to the enemy Thunderer over there, but the enemy Thunderer isn't looking at him. And he's unlikely to start looking at him as long as he's got a cruiser to shoot at. Because remember, while cruisers can be quite crunchy on the outside, they are all very, very soft and chewy on the inside. And usually, regardless of how little health a battleship has, as long as there's a cruiser around for the enemy team to shoot at, the battleship is often quite safe, and that is certainly the case here. If that Marseille can just stay alive for a bit, and he's doing his best. I mean, he's angling up against the Thunderer, although he is taking chip damage from the Cerberus is high explosive. The enemy Thunderer, however, is in a lot of trouble. He's just used his damage control. 63% chance of setting fire on target with these 18-inch high explosive shells. Yep, he's dead.
Enemy battleship foundered.
It has certainly taken some of the pressure off the Marseille. The thing is, I don't think it was really the Thunderer's 18-inch armor piercing that was the big threat to the Marseille. I mean, it was certainly hurting him, but the Marseille could always angle his belt against that. It was the chip damage from the Cerberus and the Goliath, the two cruisers. Oh, actually, and the Elbing. It was in fact the Elbing who sank him. But the Marseille was able to take the Cerberus down with him. And the Elbing, realising that there's a Thunderer with high explosive loaded, slams the brakes on, pops the smoke screen, but he was going too fast to be able to actually break Yves' target lock at the moment he fired. And there's the Kraken unleashed. 5th kill, takes out the Elbing, and now it's a one-on-one. That Goliath has not been seen for some time. You remember at the start of this video I said that the end of this battle was one of the most confusing things I've seen in a long time. The first time I was watching this, I thought, well, this is going to be a classic episode of A Game of Thrones. I can see how this is going to end, even before I'd seen how it ended. Because I'm looking up there at the scores, and the fact that the enemy team have 3 of the 4 cap circles, and a more than 200 point lead with less than 4 minutes to go. So it's that classic situation where the only thing the last surviving enemy ship has to do, with a points and a cap lead, is nothing. Just successfully manage to do nothing, and you're going to win. But if that was what was actually going to happen, why would Yves have sent this battle in? So straight away I'm thinking, it's a classic throw. All the Goliath has to do is nothing. He's going to screw up, he's going to choose violence, he's going to get himself killed, and he's going to throw the battle. Classic Game of Thrones episode. And then I noticed, actually, wait, that's not the enemy team on 820 points. It's the other score that's going up by 12 points every time it ticks. The scores are reversed. The enemy team do have 3 of the 4 cap circles, but Yves the one on 824 points. He's the one with the 200 point lead. Oh, of course the scores are reversed. This is a wargaming replay. There has to be a bug somewhere. Alright, okay, so now I don't know how this is going to end anymore. So Yves is obviously heading for that cap circle at Charlie because it's the closest one, and he wants to maintain the points lead. And the safest way to do that is to contest and hopefully flip one of the other cap circles. But then that begs the question, what is the Goliath going to do? Because he may still... Let's have a look. There's less than 2.5 minutes left. Yves is going to get into that central cap. But whether or not there's enough time left for him to flip it is an entirely different question. Maybe, maybe not. Too close to tell. Maybe it would have been a better idea to stay hidden behind the island to the north of the cap circle at Bravo and just wait there for the Goliath, because the Goliath has an equally difficult decision to make. Does he need to take that cap in order to win? Maybe not. Maybe the 3 caps that he has is going to be enough, because neither of them know what the other is doing, and neither of them can really be sure whether or not they're doing the right thing, because the points and the caps are just too close to be sure. The only thing that they can both be sure of is that they have both gone in different directions, and they find that out basically within a second of each other, as Yves moves into the cap at Charlie, and less than a second later somebody starts flipping the cap down at Bravo. So Yves, since he no longer controls a cap circle, is now stuck on 864 points. And it's going to be 40 seconds before he'll start getting points from capturing Charlie. And there's only 1 minute and 4 seconds of this battle left, which means he's going to end up with 30 seconds worth of 4 points per tick. Or in other words, his score is going to be 880 points. And the Goliath is only 80 points behind with a minute to go and 2, soon to be 3 caps. And now the Goliath's thinking, is that going to be enough? And once again, don't know. Too close to tell. Yves does know that he must take this cap or the Goliath is going to have enough points. Which means he's effectively dead in the water with only 2 turrets ready to shoot when he and the Goliath both spot each other. But he does manage to flip the cap. So now he's got 4 points coming in every tick to the 12 points coming in every tick that the Goliath has. But Yves ain't leaving it down to points when he's got 18-inch AP loaded and a cruiser to shoot at. And the Goliath gets away on 400 hit points as the rear turrets fire. But Orange Jesus says nope, and the Goliath is 7 points away from beating Yves' score as the timer hits 0. The scores are frozen, maintaining Yves' 7-point lead, and then the shots from the front turrets put the Goliath out of his misery, bitch slapping him down even after he'd already lost by 7 points. That poor Goliath. Both players had some really tough decisions to make at the end of that battle. And I'm sure you could probably argue that it might have been a better idea for Yves to lie in ambush around the island at Cap Circle Bravo, waiting for the Goliath to turn up and try to take that final cap. But would it have been the best thing to do? I mean, maybe, but the decision that he made to take the central cap at Charlie ended up winning the battle for him, so it's difficult to say it would have been better for him to lie in ambush at Bravo. But you can say that the Goliath did make the best decision, because he didn't end up having enough points to simply ride it out and claim a points lead when the timer ran out. The only real mistake that the Goliath made was getting to that cap circle at Bravo about 10 seconds too late, because if he'd been 10 seconds earlier, he would have won. But he didn't get there 10 seconds earlier, and so he didn't win. And who knows, maybe if he had gotten there 10 seconds earlier, Yves would have noticed the cap flipping 10 seconds earlier, turned around 10 seconds earlier, and killed him 10 seconds earlier, in which case Yves would have won anyway. Impossible to say, but I think we can all agree that the best player did in fact win. That's Yves, the Chief, 28, in HMS Thunderer. Hope you all enjoyed it, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.